The impossible heist. The quantum lab hidden within asteroid DX427 was silent except for Elara Kane's breathing and the occasional hum of equipment. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface with practiced precision, while her eyes, sharp and determined behind outdated prescription glasses, scanned the incoming data streams. Most humans would see only a chaotic jumble of symbols and energy signatures. Elara saw patterns, possibilities, and most importantly, a vulnerability. "Found something interesting, Dr. Kane." The voice belonged to Commander Reyes, who had entered the lab without Elara noticing. That was typical when she was deep in concentration. "Maybe more than interesting," she replied without looking up. "Possibly civilization saving." Reyes moved closer, his weathered face betraying no emotion, though Elara knew the weight he carried. As commander of humanity's last free research outpost, he bore responsibility for the 500 souls hidden within this hollowed-out asteroid. Perhaps the last humans in the solar system not under direct consortium control. "That's a bold claim," he said softly. Elara finally looked up. Bold times call for bold claims. She gestured at the data streams. "I've been monitoring the consortium's quantum network for 3 years. Today, I found a fluctuation pattern that suggests their central consciousness core isn't as impenetrable as they believe." Reyes stared at the display, though Elara knew he couldn't interpret the complex quantum equations scrolling past. "You're talking about the heart of their civilization, their god for all practical purposes." "It's not a god. It's technology," Elara corrected. "Advanced, yes, but still bound by the laws of quantum physics, laws that have patterns, and patterns have exceptions." Reyes rubbed his chin. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Elara took a deep breath. "I'm suggesting we steal it." 2 days later, Elara stood before the outpost's leadership council in the cramped conference room. 8 faces, tired, skeptical, but desperate for hope, stared back at her. The holographic display behind her showed the grim statistics of humanity's decline. Earth's population reduced from billions to mere millions in just 15 years of consortium occupation, with projections showing complete extinction within another decade. "The consortium doesn't wage conventional war," Elara explained. "They simply control resources until we become irrelevant. They've strategically cut off our technological development, our space capabilities, and our ability to compete. They're waiting for us to die quietly." "We know the situation, Dr. Kane," said Counselor Zhang, the oldest member present. "What we don't understand is your proposed solution, which sounds like suicide." Elara nodded. "It might be, but it's better than the slow death we're facing now." She brought up a new display showing a massive space station orbiting Jupiter. "This is the consortium's central quantum core, their central processing facility. Every decision, every calculation that guides their civilization flows through this hub. And you believe you can, what, hack it?" Counselor Mbeki asked, not bothering to hide his skepticism. "No, their quantum encryption is unbreakable," Elara admitted, "but their physical security has vulnerabilities. They don't expect physical infiltration because no species has attempted direct conflict with them in thousands of years. Their defenses are primarily designed against digital and quantum intrusion. So we just walk in and take their most precious technology." Zhang scoffed. Ilara's expression remained deadly serious. "Not we. A small team. Using the stealth technology I've developed based on reverse-engineered consortium quantum principles. And we don't need to take all of it, just one crystal from their consciousness core." She pulled out a small device from her pocket. "This quantum receiver can interface with their technology and absorb a fractional part of their core consciousness." The room fell silent as the implications became clear. That's not theft. That's an act of war," Reyes finally said. "We're already at war," Elara replied quietly. "They just haven't bothered to tell us." 3 weeks later, Elara sat in the cockpit of the Ghost Runner, possibly the only stealth ship humans had ever successfully built that could evade consortium detection. The small vessel, barely larger than an old Earth shuttle, hummed with energy as it approached Jupiter's orbit, its quantum displacement field bending light and energy signatures around it. Beside her sat Takashi Himura, their pilot and former Earth Defense Force commander, his hand steady on the controls despite the risk of their mission. In the cabin behind them, Ilara could hear the final preparations of their three-person infiltration team. Zara Chen, security expert, Malik Ibrahim, systems specialist, and Danny Torres, former special forces and their combat specialist if things went wrong. Approaching outer detection perimeter, Takashi announced, his voice professionally calm. Quantum displacement field holding stable. Ilara checked her own readings, adjusting field harmonic to match their sensor frequencies. We should appear as nothing more than a quantum fluctuation in their systems. The massive consortium station grew larger in their viewports. Unlike human architecture, the station followed no recognizable geometric pattern, more resembling a crystalline growth than a constructed facility. Its surface constantly shifted and reconfigured as the quantum systems within adjusted to computational needs. "It's beautiful," Danny murmured from behind Ilara, in a terrifying sort of way. "Most dangerous things are," Ilara replied. "Ready your equipment. We'll dock at the maintenance node I identified within 20 minutes." The team moved with practiced efficiency, checking their specialized suits and equipment. The suits, another of Ilara's innovations, were woven with quantum-entangled particles that would temporarily synchronize their biological signatures with the consortium's detection systems, essentially making them read as authorized maintenance drones. "Remember," Ilara said as they prepared to board, "we have exactly 43 minutes before the quantum synchronization degrades. After that, every system on that station will know we're foreign entities." Malik checked his specialized toolkit, and the extraction point is Complex F7, Sublevel 3. Correct. The consciousness core is heavily protected, but primarily against quantum intrusion, not physical theft. They can't conceive of anyone being foolish enough to try what we're attempting. "Lucky us," Zora muttered. The docking sequence went perfectly, almost too perfectly, making Ilara nervous. The maintenance hatch accepted their spoofed credentials, and they entered the alien station without alarms. Inside, the architecture defied human logic. Corridors shifted and reshaped themselves based on computational needs. The lighting came not from fixtures but from the very walls themselves, which glowed with patterns that seemed to follow some incomprehensible algorithm. "This way," Ilara whispered, following the quantum sensor readings on her wrist display. The core should be 3 levels down. They moved through the station like ghosts, occasionally passing maintenance drones, crystalline constructs that floated through the corridors on unknown errands. Each time, Ilara held her breath, but their quantum-synchronized suits performed as designed. The drones paid them no attention. 32 minutes remaining. Takashi's voice came through their comms from the ship. They reached a large chamber where the walls pulsed with intense light. At the center stood what appeared to be a crystalline tree, branches extending in all directions, each ending in a glowing node. "The distribution network," Ilara explained. "The consciousness core itself should be below." Malik worked quickly on the access panel, his fingers dancing across alien interfaces that he somehow understood intuitively. "I've got it," he said after a tense minute. Access path opening below. The floor beneath them reconfigured, forming a spiral pathway downward. They descended into the heart of the station, the light growing more intense with each step. When they reached the bottom, they all stopped in awe. Before them floated a massive crystal, perhaps 3 meters in diameter, suspended in an energy field. Within it, patterns of light moved like living thoughts, which, Ilara realized, they literally were. The collective consciousness of the consortium, a civilization spanning hundreds of star systems and thousands of years of development. "Is that?" Danny whispered. "Yes," Ilara replied. "Their God, their central intelligence, the thing that makes them more than just a collection of species." Zara checked her wrist display. 25 minutes, people. Let's not sightsee. Ilara approached the crystal, removing the quantum receiver from her pack. The device was her greatest achievement, a crystalline lattice designed to absorb and contain a fraction of the quantum consciousness without disrupting the larger whole. In theory, it would give them access to consortium knowledge without alerting them to the intrusion. I need to get within half a meter of the main crystal, she said. Malik, can you temporarily disrupt the containment field? He nodded, already working on a nearby control interface. Ready when you are. But I can only give you 15 seconds before the system autocorrects. That's all I need. The energy field flickered, and Ilara moved forward, extending the receiver toward the massive crystal. As it came close, tendrils of light seemed to reach out from the crystal toward her device. It's working, she whispered. It's actually working. The quantum receiver began to glow with the same patterned light as the main core. Data and consciousness transferring at quantum speeds. Then something went wrong. A tendril of energy from the crystal bypassed the receiver and touched Ilara's hand. Pain unlike anything she had ever experienced shot through her body as alien consciousness flooded into her neural system. She would have screamed if her muscles hadn't completely locked up. Ilara, Zara shouted, lunging forward. Don't touch her, Malik warned. The quantum field, it's expanding. The light from the crystal intensified, focusing on Ilara like a spotlight. Her body rose slightly off the ground, suspended in the same energy field that contained the crystal itself. 19 minutes until synchronization failure. Takashi's voice came through the comms, unaware of the crisis unfolding. We need to abort, Danny said, drawing her weapon. Something's gone very wrong. Malik shook his head, eyes fixed on his readings. It's too late. The transfer is happening, but not in the way we planned. It's going into her. As suddenly as it began, the energy field collapsed. Ilara dropped to the floor, the quantum receiver falling from her numb fingers. Zara rushed to her side. Ilara, can you hear me? Ilara's eyes fluttered open, but something was different about them. Patterns of light, similar to those in the crystal, seemed to move across her irises. I hear you, she said, her voice strangely calm. I hear everything. We need to move, Danny urged. Now. They helped Ilara to her feet. She moved oddly, as if relearning how her body worked. The quantum receiver lay on the floor, dark and lifeless. The receiver failed, Malik said, retrieving the device. But something transferred. Into me, Ilara said, her voice now overlaid with harmonics that hadn't been there before. I can feel it. Their knowledge, their consciousness, fragments of it, inside my mind. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. The walls began to pulse red. They know, Ilara said with certainty. They've detected the partition. We need to run. Now. The team half-carried Ilara back through the shifting corridors, which now seemed actively hostile, changing configurations to slow their progress. Maintenance drones had transformed into security constructs, their crystalline forms now sharp and threatening. Takashi. Zara shouted into her comm. Prepare for emergency extraction. We're coming in hot. They fought their way back to the docking port, Danny's specially designed disruptor weapon, proving surprisingly effective against the crystalline drones. As they reached the airlock, the ship was already ready for immediate departure. Get in, Takashi shouted as the airlock opened. They piled into the ship, dragging Ilara with them. She seemed increasingly disoriented, her eyes now glowing with the same light as the consciousness core. Go, 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 Danny shouted as the airlock sealed behind them. The Ghost Runner detached from the station and accelerated away, its quantum displacement field struggling to maintain integrity as the station's defense systems activated. Energy beams lanced out, searching for them. Hold on, Takashi called as he executed a series of evasive maneuvers that would have torn apart most ships. The Ghost Runner shuddered but held together. In the cabin, Ilara sat perfectly still, her eyes closed, light occasionally visible through her eyelids. Zara scanned her with medical equipment, her expression growing increasingly concerned. "Her neural activity is off the charts," she reported. "Brain patterns I've never seen before." "Is she dying?" Malik asked quietly. "I don't think so. I think she's changing." The ship shook violently as a glancing hit from a consortium energy weapon disrupted their quantum field. "They've locked onto us," Takashi shouted. "Quantum displacement failing." "We need to jump now," Danny called back, "before they can bring the main weapons online. The drive isn't spooled up yet. We need 3 more minutes." "We don't have 3 minutes." As if responding to their panic, Hilara's eyes snapped open, now glowing with bright blue-white light. She stood smoothly and walked to the ship's navigation console. "Ilara, what are you?" Zara began. Without responding, Ilara placed her hands on the quantum drive interface. Light flowed from her fingers into the system. The ship's engines suddenly hummed with power far beyond their design specifications. "What the hell?" Takashi stared at his controls. "The quantum drive is at 400% capacity." "That's not possible." "Jump," Ilara said, her voice resonating strangely in the small cabin. "Now." Takashi didn't argue. He engaged the quantum drive, and the Ghost Runner vanished into folded space, leaving the consortium station behind. As the ship stabilized in quantum transit, Ilara collapsed. Zara caught her before she hit the floor. "What happened back there?" Danny asked, still gripping her weapon tightly. "What did they do to her?" Ilara's eyes fluttered open, the glow now diminished but still visible. "Not what they did to me," she whispered. "What I did to them." A small smile played across her lips. "I didn't steal their technology. I stole part of their consciousness itself." She raised one hand, watching as patterns of light moved beneath her skin. "And now everything changes." Awakening. 3 days after their escape from the consortium station, Ilara Kane sat in a specially constructed isolation chamber within asteroid DX427. Medical sensors covered her body, monitoring the inexplicable changes occurring within her. Through the transparent wall, she could see Commander Reyes and the station's chief medical officer, Dr. Amara Okafor, reviewing her readings with concerned expressions. Ilara didn't need to hear their conversation. Somehow, she knew what they were saying, as if the information was simply available to her mind upon considering it. Just as she knew that 17 minor systems throughout the station needed maintenance, that the water recycling system was operating at 96.7% efficiency, and that behind the wall to her left, 3 power conduits intersected in a way that created a minor but persistent energy leak. Knowledge flowed through her consciousness like water, immediate, overwhelming, and completely foreign to human perception. She closed her eyes, trying to focus on maintaining her sense of self amid the flood of alien consciousness fragments. The door to the isolation chamber opened, and Dr. Okafor entered, her movements cautious. "How are you feeling today, Dr. Kane?" Ilara opened her eyes, noting how the doctor flinched slightly at the luminescent patterns still visible in her irises. "I'm adjusting," she replied carefully. "The foreign consciousness fragments are stabilizing. Your brain scans show activity that shouldn't be possible," Dr. Okafor said, checking a tablet. "Areas lighting up that humans don't use. Neural pathways forming at rates that defy medical understanding." "It's not just my brain changing," Ilara said quietly. "It's my perception of reality itself." She raised one hand, watching as particles of light seemed to dance between her fingers. "I can see quantum possibilities now, as clearly as you see colors." Dr. Okafor made a note. "And the abilities. Any changes there?" Since returning to the station, Ilara had demonstrated capabilities that defied scientific explanation. She could interface directly with any technology, influence quantum systems with her thoughts, and perceive information without any visible means of access. The station's leadership was simultaneously fascinated and terrified. "They're becoming more controlled," Ilara answered. "Less instinctive, more directed." She paused. "The consortium knows what happened. They're coming." Dr. Okafor looked up sharply. "How can you be certain?" "I can feel their quantum network. Their communications, parts of their consciousness still resonate with the fragments inside me." Ilara stood, approaching the transparent barrier where Commander Reyes now stood. "We have 3 days, maybe 4, before their fleet arrives. We need to prepare." The Emergency Council meeting was the largest gathering of humans Ilara had seen since returning from the mission. All 500 residents of the asteroid outpost crowded into the main chamber, their faces showing varying degrees of fear, hope, and uncertainty. Commander Reyes addressed them from a small elevated platform, with Ilara standing slightly behind him. She could feel their anxiety as if it were a tangible thing. Another new perception she was still learning to manage. The mission to infiltrate the consortium facility had unexpected results. Reyes began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "But it may have given us our first real advantage in this long conflict." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Many eyes fixed on Ilara, particularly the subtle glow visible around her when the chamber's lighting dimmed. "Dr. Kane has confirmed that a consortium fleet is approaching. Their intentions are clear. They want back what was taken from them." Reyes turned slightly. "Dr. Kane, perhaps you should explain." Ilara stepped forward, immediately sensing the crowd's apprehension intensify. "What we took from the consortium wasn't just technology or information," she began. "It was a fragment of their central consciousness, the quantum intelligence that coordinates their entire civilization." She paused, looking at the faces before her. Friends, colleagues, the last free humans in the solar system. "That fragment now exists within me, integrated with my human consciousness. It gives me certain capabilities that might help us survive what's coming." "What exactly can you do?" called someone from the crowd. Instead of answering verbally, Ilara raised one hand. The lighting throughout the chamber dimmed, then reshaped itself into a 3-dimensional projection of the solar system. Within it, a cluster of red points moved toward their location. "This is the consortium fleet," she said, the display zooming in to show alien vessels of varying sizes, their crystalline structures gleaming. 17 ships, including 3 capital-class vessels capable of destroying this entire asteroid with a single weapon discharge. The crowd's fear was palpable now. "We cannot outrun them. We cannot outgun them." Ilara closed her hand, and the projection vanished, the normal lighting returning. "But we can outsmart them. Because I understand how they think, how their systems work, the very nature of their existence." "Are you suggesting we fight?" asked Counselor Zhang, his aged voice skeptical. "I'm suggesting we do what humans have always done best," Ilara replied. "Adapt and survive in ways our enemies cannot anticipate." 2 days later, Ilara stood in the asteroid's small hangar bay beside the Ghost Runner. The ship had been modified according to her specifications, changes that the engineering team had initially declared impossible until she showed them exactly how to reconfigure the quantum systems. Takashi approached, his expression troubled. "The modifications are complete, but I still don't understand half of what we did. This goes beyond any human technology." "It's not human technology anymore," Ilara acknowledged. "It's a hybrid, human intuition guided by consortium knowledge." The rest of the original mission team joined them. Zara, Malik, and Dani, all looking at the transformed ship with a mixture of awe and unease. "You're really planning to face their fleet alone?" Dani asked, her tone suggesting she thought Ilara had lost her mind. "Not alone," Ilara corrected. "I need all of you with me. Your skills, your instincts, things the consortium consciousness within me doesn't understand." "What exactly is the plan?" Malik asked. "Even with these modifications, we're still one small ship against 17 larger ones." Ilara's eyes glowed slightly brighter. We're going to introduce them to a concept they've never encountered in their thousands of years of existence, a computer virus, or more accurately, a quantum consciousness virus. She gestured to a small crystalline device now integrated into the ship's main console. This contains a recursive quantum algorithm I've developed, a self-replicating pattern that will spread through their quantum network and temporarily disrupt their collective consciousness. You're going to give them a migraine, Zara said with dawning understanding. On a civilization-wide scale, Ilara confirmed, it won't harm them permanently, but it will disorient them long enough for us to implement the second phase of the plan, which is, Takashi pressed, negotiation, something they've never bothered to attempt with us before now. The Ghost Runner emerged from quantum space directly in the path of the approaching consortium fleet. From the outside, the small human vessel appeared unchanged, but its internal systems had been fundamentally transformed. Quantum energy coursed through pathways that shouldn't have been possible according to human engineering principles. On the bridge, Ilara sat in the central chair, her eyes closed as she interfaced directly with the ship's systems. The rest of the crew monitored their stations, though they now understood that much of the ship's operation had shifted to Ilara's direct control. Consortium fleet holding position at 3 million kilometers, Takashi reported. They're scanning us. They're curious, Ilara said without opening her eyes. They've detected the quantum signature I'm emitting. It's familiar to them, but wrong somehow, like hearing your own voice distorted. Are they going to communicate or just blast us into atoms? Danny asked tensely, her hands hovering over the weapons controls that Ilara had extensively modified. They're preparing to establish direct quantum communication, Ilara replied, just as I expected. They need to understand what I am before they decide to destroy me. A crystalline structure on the ship's main console began to glow, projecting a three-dimensional image of a being unlike anything humans had encountered before. Its form shifted constantly between different geometric configurations, though always maintaining a vaguely humanoid central structure. You carry what is not yours to possess, the being stated, its voice resonating directly in their minds rather than through conventional sound. Return the consciousness fragment, and your death will be quick. Ilara opened her eyes, now glowing brightly with the same patterns visible in the alien projection. I carry what was freely given through contact, she responded, speaking both verbally and through quantum resonance. The fragment has merged with human consciousness to create something new, something beyond your understanding. The alien form rippled, patterns of light showing what might have been agitation. Impossible. Human consciousness is primitive, linear. It cannot integrate with quantum consciousness. And yet, here I am. Ilara stood, approaching the projection. You've misunderstood humanity from the beginning. You saw our technological limitations and assumed cognitive limitations as well. A critical error. Your species will be extinct within one planetary cycle. This aberration changes nothing. It changes everything, Ilara countered. Because now I understand your greatest weakness, your inability to conceive of truly new possibilities. Your quantum consciousness makes you powerful but unchanging. Humans evolve, adapt, imagine. With a subtle gesture from Ilara, the ship's modified systems activated. A pulse of quantum energy, invisible to normal perception, but blazingly bright to Ilara's enhanced senses, shot toward the consortium fleet. Pulse away, Malik confirmed, watching his instruments, penetrating their quantum fields. The alien projection flickered violently. What have you done? The demand carried undertones of something the consortium had likely never experienced before. Fear. Introduced a new concept to your collective consciousness, Ilara explained calmly. A recursive quantum algorithm that forces new neural pathways, new ways of thinking. You're experiencing the human capacity for change, whether you want to or not. Across the fleet, consortium ships began behaving erratically. Some drifted from formation, while others pulsed with chaotic light patterns. The alien projection before them fragmented repeatedly, struggling to maintain coherence. It's working, Zara whispered, watching the sensor readings. Their quantum network is experiencing massive disruptions. Not destruction, Ilara clarified. Transformation. I've introduced a fundamental question into their consciousness that they cannot resolve through their normal processes. What if they're wrong about humanity? The alien projection finally stabilized, though its patterns now moved in distinctly different rhythms. This sensation, this disorder, you have infected us with uncertainty. I've infected you with possibility, Ilara corrected. And now, for the first time in perhaps thousands of years, you're capable of considering new ideas. She leaned forward, including the idea that exterminating humanity might not be your only or best option. The projection was silent for several long moments, its patterns shifting in ways that suggested deep internal conflict. Finally, it spoke again. The consciousness collective is divided. This has never occurred before. That's called having a difference of opinion, Danny muttered. Welcome to being more human. What do you propose, hybrid consciousness? The entity finally asked. Ilara smiled slightly. I propose we talk about a future where humans and the consortium coexist, where we contribute our adaptive thinking to your stability, and you contribute your quantum understanding to our evolution. Coexistence was never considered. Your species was deemed irrelevant to cosmic advancement. And now, alternatives must be evaluated. This is uncomfortable. Growth usually is, Ilara said simply. 3 months later, Ilara stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed quantum communication hub in Earth orbit. Through the viewport, she could see the gleaming consortium vessel maintaining position nearby, not as conquerors, but as cautious diplomatic partners. Commander Reyes joined her, looking out at the alien ship. The Council has approved the Technology Exchange Agreement, Consortium Quantum Medical Technology in exchange for human creative arts and literature. He shook his head slightly. Still seems like an uneven trade. Not to them, Ilara replied. They've existed for millennia with technological mastery, but without new ideas. The concept of fiction, of imagining things that aren't real, is revolutionizing their consciousness collective. And how is your condition progressing? Reyes asked carefully. Ilara turned to him, the glow in her eyes now controlled, only visible when she chose to use her abilities. The integration stabilizes more each day. I'm neither fully human nor consortium now. Something in between. A bridge. The first of many, perhaps, Reyes suggested. That's my hope. She gestured to the tablet in his hand. Are those the candidates? He nodded, passing it to her. 20 volunteers for the first Human Consortium Consciousness Integration Program. If you approve, the process begins next week. Ilara scanned the list of names, sensing the quantum possibilities spreading out from this moment like ripples in still water. The future that had seemed so hopeless just months ago now expanded with potential. Humanity won't just survive now, she said quietly. We'll transform, become something greater than we were, while still remaining essentially human. She looked back at the consortium ship. And they'll change too, though they're still struggling with the concept. Evolution through cooperation rather than competition, Reyes mused. Not a bad legacy for a quantum physicist from a hidden asteroid base. Ilara smiled. The consortium believed they understood the universe completely. Humans have always known we have more to learn. She handed back the tablet with the approved list. That's why we'll thrive together. Not because we stole their power, but because we showed them something they never expected. What's that? That the greatest power in the universe isn't control or knowledge, or even quantum consciousness, Ilara said, watching as the patterns of possibility unfolded before her transformed perception. It's the ability to imagine what doesn't exist yet, and then make it real. As if responding to her words, the consortium vessel pulsed with patterns of light, a new form of communication developing between the once separate civilizations. The quantum future was unwritten, filled with possibilities that neither humans nor the consortium alone could have conceived. And at the center of it all stood Ilara Kane, no longer just human, not quite alien, but the first of something entirely new in the universe, a bridge between ways of being. A quantum thief who had stolen not just power, but possibility itself.